The New York Attorney General, who successfully prosecuted the civil fraud case against President Trump, has now been charged and indicted after an investigation by his Justice Department. She says this is part of President Trump's campaign of political retribution. This is coming just days after former FBI Director James Comey was also indicted on federal charges. Aaron Katersky has more.
It was just 2 weeks ago, Rachel, President Trump told the Justice Department to get things moving against his political enemies. Now 2 of them are facing federal charges. This time, New York Attorney General Letitia James, who brought a $500 million civil fraud case against Trump, his business, and his family. James is now facing 2 mortgage-related charges that she denies and calls baseless. Trump forced out the prior U.S. attorney who refused to seek this indictment after sources told ABC News his 5-month investigation uncovered no clear evidence James committed fraud. The charges were brought by Trump's hand-picked replacement, his one-time personal attorney, Lindsay Halligan, who Trump pledged would get things moving, and she did, prosecuting Trump's nemesis, former FBI Director James Comey, and now Letitia James.
Letitia James is due to appear in federal court in Norfolk, Virginia later this month. James Comey's trial is scheduled for January.
This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. He is forcing federal law enforcement agencies to do his bidding, all because I did my job as the New York State Attorney General. These charges are baseless, and the president's own public statements make clear that his only goal is political retribution at any cost. The president's actions are a grave violation of our constitutional order and have drawn sharp criticism from members of both parties. His decision to fire a United States attorney who refused to bring charges against me and replace them with someone who is blindly loyal not to the law, but to the president, is antithetical to the bedrock principles of our country. This is the time for leaders on both sides of the aisle to speak out against this blatant perversion of our system of justice. I stand strongly behind my office's litigation against the Trump Organization. We conducted a 2-year investigation based on the facts and evidence, not politics. Judges have upheld the trial court's finding that Donald Trump, his company, and his 2 sons are liable for fraud. I'm a proud woman of faith, and I know that faith and fear cannot share the same space. And so today, I'm not fearful. I'm fearless. And as my faith teaches me, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. We will fight these baseless charges aggressively, and my office will continue to fiercely protect New Yorkers and their rights. And I will continue to do my job.
We are making clear that this is not simply an attack on Attorney General Tish James. This is an attack on our city. And each one of us represents different parts of that same city, and we speak with one voice today. We speak with a voice that recognizes that we are standing in front of the same courthouse where Attorney General Tish James did her job, upholding the law and holding Donald Trump accountable. Trump versus New York was argued in this courthouse, and yet as it is so clear today, that fight continues outside of this courthouse as we speak. Because what Donald Trump has sought to do with taking over the federal government is to advance his own greed and his own agenda. And we are now watching as in the pursuit of that advancement, he lays waste to our democracy. This is a blatant miscarriage of justice. This is a shameless act of political retribution. And instead of prosecuting Tish James for doing her job, Donald Trump should be doing his. Because Donald Trump ran for president on 3 promises: to carry out mass deportation, to punish his political enemies, and to ease the cost of living crisis. And it is that 3rd promise that compelled so many working class voters across this city. A promise, however, that we've seen Donald Trump is fundamentally incapable of delivering on, because to do so would be to speak against the very donors he's beholden to, the same donors profiting off that same crisis of a cost of living. And so what he has done instead is focus all his time and energy on punishment and cruelty, carrying out mass deportation just here at 26 Federal Plaza for so many New Yorkers going for a routine immigration check-in, and punishing his political enemies. A persecution of Tish James that we have to understand does not just occur in a vacuum. It occurs within a context of the weaponization of our justice system, an attack on our democracy, and the result of a broken political system that empowers lawless billionaires to rule alongside corrupt politicians, all at the expense of working class Americans across this country. And this indictment is instructive in two clear ways. The first, in its example of an authoritarian administration that is looking to punish those for whom their only crime is holding Donald Trump to the same laws that every American should be held to. And the second is what it asks of each of us. Will we sit idly by as an authoritarian president like Donald Trump attacks the very fabric of this democracy, the very fabric of this city, the very fabric of the trust which underpins all of it?
New York Attorney General Letitia James, known for leading the civil fraud case against Donald Trump, has now been indicted by a federal grand jury on charges of bank fraud and making false statements to a lending institution. Prosecutors allege that James misrepresented a Virginia property as her primary residence to secure better mortgage terms. She denies any intent to deceive and called the charges a desperate political weaponization of the justice system. The case was filed in the Eastern District of Virginia and has been assigned to U.S. District Judge Jamar K. Walker, a Biden appointee. Ironically, that's exactly the kind of judicial assignment the Trump team would want to avoid, given Walker's appointment under the previous administration. The indictment was brought forward by Lindsay Halligan, the new U.S. attorney for that district, who replaced her predecessor. Reports suggest the prior U.S. attorney resisted moving forward with charges due to, very insufficient evidence. While Halligan personally presented the case to the grand jury. This move deepens the perception that the justice system is being pulled into political warfare, because that's what's happening. One side accusing James of corruption, the other calling the case retaliation for her prosecution for Trump. However, judicial assignments are typically procedural and randomized, non-handpicked by political influence. For now, James is expected to appear in court within days. The case could set the stage for one of the most politically charged legal battles of the entire year. I mean, the year is not over yet, so we don't know. But what do you think?
Ladies and gentlemen, the New York Attorney General Letitia James has been indicted by a federal grand jury. So this indictment was led by a team of U.S. attorneys, the lead being Lindsay Halligan, who was handpicked by President Trump himself. So they claim that Madam Letitia James is guilty of bank fraud and making false financial statements to financial institutions in order to gain favorable loan terms. So the opposing side, that is the side that is supporting Letitia James, claim that this is politically motivated. As you know, Letitia James is one of the biggest critics of President Trump and has been on a litigant spree to target and strike down majority of his policies, especially in the state of New York. Madam Letitia James has stood up to President Trump, claiming that she will fight on and she's not afraid of the salvos that is firing at her. And also Mamdani and many other Democrats have fired back, claiming that Donald J. Trump is using lawfare to attack many of his critics and to silence any form of dissidents. Republicans, majority of them have also reacted. There are those who are overjoyed at this news, and many of them have claimed that in the past, Madam Letitia James famously said that no one is above the law, and these very words have come back to haunt her. So ladies and gentlemen, as you've seen from these reactions, people have mixed feelings. Many of them are angry, many of them are happy as well. So it's also alleged that the US attorney carried out this indictment without following the due process or consulting with the Attorney General Pamponi or his Deputy Attorney General. And it's also alleged that this is actually a weak case and might be thrown out sooner rather than later. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the new development that has been doing rounds, and I'm keeping a close eye on it so that I'll come back first to update you on any major development that comes up. But as always, I hope to see you in the next video. Don't forget to leave a like and don't forget to share the video. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope to see you in the next video. Cheers and peace.